Okay guys, sorry for the interruption. So we're going from dark to light on our paper. I'm adding a little bit more black. The most important thing is that this dark shade is clearly darker than the previous shade. But we don't want it quite black because black will go in that next section. Now, if you just want to get the texture in there, you can use the side of the Q-tip. You can use more than one Q-tip at once. Although with such a small area, I probably wouldn't. If you wanted a smaller mark, you could take some of the fluff off of the Q-tip. Okay, I'm gonna go back in with the red. And I'm gonna fill out this area a little bit more, making sure it's clearly lighter than that darker shade, but darker than the red. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little bit more darkness in this color here because it's still a little bit light. Gonna just work it in. Now, if you don't like the color, you can wait for it to dry and you can cover it up. That's one of the advantages to acrylic. Now, and then for this last color here, we're gonna do just straight black. And because I had red on my Q-tip, you might see a little bit of red coming through, but you can just kind of cover it up with more black. Okay, so I think you'll get the kind of general idea here. Now, the adverse will be happening here. So with these colors, we started with red and we added small amounts of black till we got darker. You always want to start with your lighter color. So I'm gonna start with white on my plate. I'm gonna add a very small amount of red. So you always wanna start it with a pile of your lighter color and add your darker color. I want like a dark pink for a tint of red, and then I want a light pink for the light tint of red. Hue here just means the color itself. I think I could get a little bit darker. Just want to add a small amount at a time. I want it to be clearly lighter than the red, but clearly darker than the next tint. You see I'm not scrubbing it back and forth, I'm dabbing it because that's what we're gonna be expected to do with this technique. And yet again, the color may not be perfectly even, but that's kind of what we're going for with this, like being able to see some texture in the way that we paint this. Kind of like the Impressionist and the Post-Impressionist, you could still see the spots and the brush marks. So then I would add yet more white, or I would actually just get some white and with a little bit of pink that's left over, I'd mix it so it just looked a little bit pink, maybe get a little bit of that last color, because we want, red is so dark it will overtake the white very quickly. So you can see that that's clearly a lighter pink than the previous one. And we would just fill it into the white. I think you'll kind of get the idea there. Now, for our secondary colors, I'm gonna go ahead and change Q-tips since I have black and white on that. So we have our, we have 3 secondary colors and we have 1 tertiary colors. A tertiary color is the kind of in between. So we have our primary colors on our plate, a red, yellow, and blue. You can't mix those just exist. And our secondary colors are on our tray. And we also have some neutrals over here, which we'll talk about later. Okay, so here, let's go ahead and start with green. So you always want to start with your lightest color first, which is going to be yellow. Put a little yellow off to the side because I want to save some of my yellow to make orange and other shades later. Now, because blue is so much darker than yellow, you just want to get a little bit of that blue and mix it in because we want a nice medium green. It's kind of a grass green. It's a little on the light side, so I want to get a little bit more blue. We want to only add a tiny bit at a time because that blue is so dark and the yellow is so light that it will overtake it really, really quick. And I don't want to spread it all out when I'm mixing it. I want to keep it in a little pile because if you spread it all out, it will dry really quickly. A little more blue in there. If you get a little too much blue, which I think I just did, I don't want a blue green, I want a regular green. I'm gonna grab a little more yellow. Now you see I'm not dipping it into the middle, I'm just grabbing some off the edge because we need some clean yellow to do our orange area. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna fill in the green. Now, it's gonna be okay if you get a little bit of uneven color because with the technique we're using, that's part of pointillism, is that you'll get some texture. Got a nice green in there. Might grab a little more because this is getting kind of yellow green. Okay, now since we've got that green, I've already got green on here and we don't need to use green anywhere else. I'm gonna mix my olive green. I'm gonna use this pile of green to mix an olive green. Now, this is a nice bright green. And what we're gonna do is we're going to mix a little bit of the opposite color in there to neutralize it, to make it a neutral olive green. These are all types of neutrals over here. So I already have green on there. So think on the color wheel, what is on the opposite side from green? Red. We're going to use a very small amount of red, very small, and then we're going to mix it in and we're going to create an olive green. Now if it turns too brown, we're going to have to make a little more green in there. Looks a little bit too much yellow, a little bit too much brown. I'm gonna get a little more blue in there until we have a nice neutral green. Let's test that out. Oh yeah, that looks like a nice olive green. So if your green is too bright, you're just gonna add the opposite to it. Same thing with any of your colors. If they're a little too bright and you want them more neutral, you're just going to add the opposite to them. I'll come back in my next video, give those a try, and I'll come back in my next video and show y'all how to complete the rest of this. I look forward to seeing your work.